One of the most important consequential elections are set to take place in the next couple of days. America is set to vote on the 5th of November. To understand the issues at play, the importance of this election, the significance of the verdict for India and the world beyond, I have with me Mr. Ravi Agrawal, Editor-in-Chief of Foreign Policy, in conversation with NDTV. Thank you so much, Ravi, for taking out the time.
My pleasure.
It's just a couple of days to go for the elections. Let me start by asking you that you're here in Manhattan. How do you see the election shaping up right now?
It's incredibly close. I think at this point, your viewers, of course, will be very familiar with the polls, which are very split on who might win. I think the thing that all of us are now looking out for is which candidate has more energy behind them. And by that, I mean turnout. So whoever can get more of their supporters to actually show up and vote. And remember, early voting is underway in many American states already. So we already have millions of people who have voted. And I think the challenge will be to make sure that each side gets the rest of their potential voters out to the polls on November 5th. It's a game of turnout.
It's a game of turnout. But, if one were to talk about the issues, one talks about immigration, economy, a lot is talked about, even specifically about abortion rights and so on and so forth. But what, according to you, is probably one of those critical issues or the pivotal issues on which America is actually voting this time?
I think it almost always comes down to the pocketbook. For the broad selection of the electorate, there have been a lot of fears and worries about inflation. But if you look at economic data over the last few months, inflation has eased, economic growth has picked up, unemployment has remained low. So a lot of the fundamentals seem to have been turning in favor of the Biden administration and therefore Harris. I think the question, though, is, people like you and I can cite data, but that doesn't matter because ultimately it's about how people feel.
Yes.
And I think economists get this wrong all the time. Elections are about how people feel, and it's about whether they feel hope or despair.
Yes.
And there's no way of measuring that other than an election, which is why this is as unpredictable and exciting as it is. You cited a few other things. I think immigration matters. People are worried about a flow of immigrants into this country if those immigrants are not coming here legally. Rightly or wrongly, we can discuss whether that is a baseless fear or a correct fear. But it's clear that immigration policy has been mishandled by the Biden administration. Abortion rights, I think, is a huge issue for women voters. And I think if you look at, again, according to the polls, one of the key divides in American politics right now is how women are voting and how men are voting. There's a gender divide. There is an education divide, how college-educated voters will go, how non-college educated voters will go. And the biggest divide is between college-educated women and non-college educated men. And of course, no surprise, college-educated women are more likely to go for Harris. Again, the question is how many of them turn out.
Coming to the India aspect and, the India-US relationship, of course, whoever comes, the bilateral relationship is set to grow. But different regimes take a different view about any relationship. How do you see that in the wake of a Harris win, in the wake of a Trump win?
So before I get into any differences between the two, I think one thing must be stated. There is broad bipartisan agreement in Washington on the US-India relationship being something that one must invest in, right? So Democrats and Republicans in Congress both believe in that. The second thing is that if you look at a trajectory over the last 20 years, which includes the Trump administration, US-India ties have only gotten stronger, right? So given that trajectory, I don't think too much changes for India, no matter who is president. But there are some things that will change. Harris, in general, we think, believes more in alliances, believes more in rules in the global international order.
But if I were to just ask in terms of who could be better for India, this is an important election, but it's also important for us, for our Indian viewers. Who do you think would be better for India?
Look, again, I think India is well served. When I speak to foreign leaders in, say, Africa or other Asian countries, do you know what they always tell me? we wish America would treat us the way they treat India, which is to say transactional, which is to say seeing strategic value in a partnership, which is to say a bipartisan agreement in a longer term future relationship. So all other countries want to be treated like India. India's in a very good place regardless. Now, if you take Trump at his word and he slaps 20% tariffs on Indian goods that are coming to America, that won't be great for India.
Yes.
But will Trump actually do as he says? Or will he include exceptions for friends, exceptions for countries that have figured out some transaction or route around it? We don't know. It's the unpredictability. And unpredictability will worry a lot of countries that don't have cards to play.
Yes.
India has cards to play. It is an important actor in the global arena. America, of course, sees it as a counterbalance to China. But more than that, again, there is a deep-seated sense in Washington, D.C. that this is a country we must invest in.